One of the biggest topic that really pisses me off, among the many things that piss me off, is that tragic fire in an unauthorized warehouse being used for people to live in as a residence. Now, when you do that, you're mixing a cocktail for disaster, because you don't have it set up for fire escapes, you don't have it set up for sprinkler systems, and apparently the place was not maintained, and the police and the government is looking probably at criminal proceedings against the landlord. And shit like that happens all the time. I've witnessed it here in Toronto, where there's buildings that are not being used or up to code, and it's almost like drinking and driving. You might get away with it, but sooner or later you're going to cause an accident, or you're going to kill yourself or kill somebody else. What's your view on this tragedy in the United States of this big fire in the warehouse?
Yeah, I saw the inside of the warehouse. It was just, again, it was a recipe for disaster, Frank. It was just nothing but just, couches and woodwork and speakers. They didn't allow any candles. They didn't allow anyone to light up a smoke or a marijuana cigarette, and that's all they were doing in there. It was just bound to happen. And it was, just I didn't like anything about the way to get in or the way to get out. It was just bound to happen, man. And these are mostly homeless people who would come in out of the streets for basically free rent or very little rent. So it was just disastrous.
There was actual people who were renting the place.
Yeah, but for very little.
Using it as their home. It was not a free rent place.
Yeah, no, but very little.
Landlord, it was a business.
Yeah, but there was very little rent for these people, and there were a lot of them
people
in
paying
there.
rent, and usually when you're illegal, or if you're in an illegal basement apartment, your rent factor is not that high, because the key word here is fucking illegal.
Yeah, exactly who they were.
Yeah, and right now the death toll is up to 36, so obviously not just a few people affected by this. And I think you said it very well, Frank. I mean, there was no safety precautions whatsoever when it comes to dealing with this type of situation. Once the fire started, there was nothing these people could do.
Yeah, and what a way to go. My God,
horrible.
Guys.
Well, dying, period, is a horrible way to go, but to burn yourself alive has got to be one of the most painful, I can't imagine it. And, I've burned my finger for a split second, and the pain is outrageous. Can you imagine being cooked alive? I think this should be a rude awakening for a lot of these illegal places that are being used for residency right now. And it's also a rude awakening for them to put a special task force, because in some instances there's a friendship with the guy who's coming and doing the investigation, and sometimes people turn a blind eye.
I think in this particular case there's going to be a massive class action lawsuit. So whatever the fire,
that's not going to bring anybody back alive.
It's not going to bring anybody back alive. But
I think he's got to be tried. This is criminal. It's manslaughter.
Well, when they did the investigation, they basically found that it was piles of wood, furniture, and then you had all these electrical cords all over the place. Only 2 exits in the whole facility, and all these things were all just mashed together. So it was a total death trap.
It was an accident waiting to happen.
Yep.
There's no way about it. Anybody, I don't understand why a place that visible was not investigated or shut down. I mean, the police have the right to come to a dilapidated place and close it.
Mm-hmm. And there are hundreds of places.
And if you are found on a condemned property, you're getting arrested.
Yeah, and I saw on the news last night, there's hundreds and hundreds of residents just like that in San Francisco, where the rent, if you saw the movie, a documentary called San Francisco 2.0, the rent is unbelievable. Worse than Toronto, worse than Vancouver.
Oh yeah, you can't buy a place in San Francisco unless you are making millions of dollars. It is ridiculous. I've got friends out there that they work at IBM. They're like bigwigs there, and they can barely afford an apartment.
That's right. And those are the people who are raising the rents. My goodness. And probably the Chinese buying a lot of the places up too.
That's what we deal with here,
Is Frank still on the phone?
Yeah, I'm still on the line. I'm listening. I'm just, in in many major cities, including Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, where people need to be there or for their job, and their job doesn't warrant the cost of living, they are the victims of themselves, of their own circumstance, because they end up just to have a bed or a place to stay in, right?
Yeah.
They put their sanity and their life and safety in jeopardy. And that's what, this was a warehouse. Not even a good warehouse. It was a dilapidated warehouse. And there was hundreds of people living there.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw some of the interviews. I've never heard so much pain and tragedy. And can you imagine the parents of these kids?